All India Radio presents Morning News. Good morning, I'm Sunil Verma and with me is Saira Mujtaba. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi conveys to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov India's readiness to contribute to peace efforts in Ukraine-Russia conflict. Reiterates his call for early cessation of violence in the region. National Education Policy 2020 caters to 21st century aspirations and takes India to the future, says Prime Minister. Interacts with students, teachers and parents in the 5th edition of Pariksha Pe Charcha. Nepal Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba to meet Prime Minister Modi in New Delhi this afternoon. President Ram Nath Kovind to hold bilateral talks with his Turkmenistan counterpart Sardar Berdi Mohammedow today at capital Ashgabat. GST collection touches all-time high of over 1,42,000 crore rupees in March this year. Telugu and Kannada New Year Day, Ugadi and Marathi New Year Gudi Padava being celebrated today. Public emergency declared in Sri Lanka after hundreds tried to storm President's house. At least 12 people killed and 25 injured in an explosion in Afghanistan. In IPL cricket, Kolkata Knight Riders defeat Punjab Kings by 6 wickets last night. Mumbai Indians to face Rajasthan Royals at Navi Mumbai and Gujarat Titans to clash with Delhi Capitals in Pune today. The Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi yesterday. Mr. Lavrov briefed the Prime Minister on the situation in Ukraine, including the ongoing peace negotiations. The Prime Minister reiterated his call for an early cessation of violence and conveyed India's readiness to contribute in any way to the peace efforts. The Russian Foreign Minister also updated Mr. Modi on the progress of decisions taken during the India-Russia bilateral summit held in December last year. Earlier, the External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held talks with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in New Delhi. Mr. Lavrov arrived last evening on a 2-day visit to India. The two ministers also discussed developments pertaining to Ukraine. Mr. Lavrov briefed the Indian side on Russia's perspective, including the ongoing talks. In his opening remarks before the meeting, Dr. Jaishankar emphasized the importance of cessation of violence and ending hostilities.
Our bilateral relations has continued to grow in many areas, and we have diversified our cooperation by expanding our agenda. Our meeting takes place in a difficult international environment, quite apart from the pandemic. India, as you are aware, has always been in favor of resolving differences and disputes through dialogue and diplomacy.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said the National Education Policy 2020 caters to 21st century aspirations and takes India to the future. Interacting with students, teachers and parents in the Pariksha Pe Charcha program in Delhi, Mr. Modi said the consultative process for the National Education Policy has been exhaustive and people across India were consulted for this.
नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी का हिंदुस्तान के हर तबके में पुरजोश स्वागत हुआ है और इसलिए इस काम को करने वाले सब अभिनंदन के अधिकारी लाखों लोग हैं जिन्होंने इसको बनाया है। देश के नागरिकों ने बनाया है, देश के विद्यार्थियों ने बनाया है, देश के टीचर्स ने बनाया है और देश के भविष्य के लिए बनाया है।
Mr. Modi said, outdated ideas and policies from the 20th century cannot guide India's development trajectory in the 21st century. He said the country has to change with the times.
क्या हम 20वीं सदी की नीतियों को लेकर के 21वीं सदी का निर्माण कर सकते हैं क्या? मैं आप लोगों से पूछता हूं। 20वीं सदी की सोच, 20वीं सदी की व्यवस्था, 20वीं सदी की नीति, इससे 21वीं सदी में आगे बढ़ सकते हैं क्या? नहीं बढ़ सकते ना। तो हमें 21वीं सदी के अनुकूल अपनी सारी व्यवस्थाओं को, सारी नीतियों को ढालना चाहिए कि नहीं ढालना चाहिए। अगर हम अपने आप को इवॉल्व नहीं करेंगे तो हम ठहर जाएंगे और ठहर जाएंगे ऐसा नहीं, हम पिछड़ जाएंगे।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Nepalese counterpart Sher Bahadur Deuba will hold talks in New Delhi today. Mr. Deuba arrived in New Delhi yesterday afternoon on a 3-day visit to India. Minister of State for Defence Ajay Bhatt received Mr. Deuba at the airport. This is the first visit abroad by Mr. Deuba after assuming office in July last year. A high-level delegation is accompanying the Nepalese Prime Minister. More details from our correspondent.
Prime Minister of Nepal, Sher Bahadur Deuba, will pay tributes to Father of the Nation, Mahatma Gandhi, at Rajghat this morning. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Mr. Deuba will hold talks and several agreements are scheduled to be signed after the meeting. The Prime Minister of Nepal will call on Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu. Besides official engagements in New Delhi, Mr. Deuba will visit Varanasi tomorrow. India and Nepal enjoy age-old and special ties of friendship and cooperation. In the recent years, the partnership has witnessed significant growth in all areas of cooperation. Anupam Mish, AR News, Delhi.
Train services between Jayanagar in Bihar and Kurtha in Nepal, a stretch of 34.5 kilometers, will start from today. East Central Railway Chief Public Relations Officer Birendra Kumar told AIR that Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Nepalese counterpart Sher Bahadur Deuba will jointly inaugurate passenger train services through video conferencing today. Indian citizens wishing to travel by this train to Kurtha in Nepal will have to carry a photo identity card issued by the central or state governments, voter identity card issued by the Election Commission of India, or identity cards issued by the Indian Embassy in Nepal. The Ministry of External Affairs had sanctioned 784 crore rupees for this ambitious project.
President Ramnath Kovind is scheduled to visit the Osan Presidential Palace in the Turkmenistan capital, Ashgabat, this morning, where he will be received by his counterpart, Sardar Berdi Mohammedov. There will be discussions and delegation-level talks, followed by signing of several MOUs. Later in the day, President Ramnath Kovind is scheduled to visit the Kipchak Mausoleum, the largest mosque in Central Asia. He is also scheduled to meet with alumni of ITEC-ICCR. In the evening, an official banquet in the honor of the President will be hosted by the Turkmeni President in the Osan Palace. President Ramnath Kovind reached Turkmenistan capital Ashgabat last evening as part of his two-nation tour to the country and the Netherlands. India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement will be signed today. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal and Trade, Tourism and Investment Minister of Australia Dan Tehan will sign the India-Australia Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. The agreement will be signed in a virtual ceremony in the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison. The agreement, encompassing trade in goods and services, is a balanced and equitable trade agreement which will further strengthen the strategic relations between the two countries.
India's COVID-19 vaccination coverage crossed the 184 crore 49 lakh mark yesterday. The Health Ministry said more than 16 lakh vaccine doses were administered yesterday. More than 1 crore 80 lakh vaccine doses have been administered to the 12 to 14 year age group so far. The ministry said over 2 crore 33 lakh precaution doses have been administered to identified categories of beneficiaries like healthcare workers, frontline workers and people over 60 years of age so far. In the age group of 15 to 18 years, more than 5 crore 72 lakh vaccine doses have been administered so far as the first dose and 3 crore 83 lakh as the second dose.
The gross goods and services tax GST collection has touched an all-time high of over 1,42,000 crore rupees in March this year. The Finance Ministry said the gross GST collection in March this year is all-time high, breaching earlier record of 1,40,986 crore rupees collected in January this year. The revenues for the month of March 2022 are 15% higher than the GST revenues in the same month last year. During the month, revenues from import of goods was 25% higher, and the revenues from domestic transaction are 11% higher than the revenues from these sources during the same month last year. On the collection, Central Goods and Services Tax CGST is 25,830 crore rupees. State Goods and Services Tax SGST is 32,378 crore. Integrated Goods and Services Tax IGST is 74,470 crore and cess is 9,417 crore rupees.
You're listening to the morning news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi conveys to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov India's readiness to contribute to peace efforts in Ukraine-Russia conflict, reiterates his call for early cessation of violence in the region. National Education Policy 2020 caters to 21st century aspirations and takes India to the future, says Prime Minister. Interacts with students, teachers and parents in the 5th edition of Pariksha Pe Charcha. Nepal Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba to meet Prime Minister Modi in New Delhi this afternoon. President Ramnath Kovind to hold bilateral talks with his Turkmenistan counterpart Sardar Berdi Mohammadov today at capital Ashgabad. GST collection touches an all-time high of over 1,42,000 crore rupees in March this year. Telugu and Kannada New Year, Ugadi and Marathi New Year, Gudi Padwa being celebrated today. Public emergency declared in Sri Lanka after hundreds tried to storm President's house. At least 12 people killed and 25 injured in an explosion in Afghanistan. And in IPL cricket, Kolkata Knight Riders defeat Punjab Kings by 6 wickets last night, Mumbai Indians to face Rajasthan Royals at Navi Mumbai, and Gujarat Titans to clash with Delhi Capitals in Pune today. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle @AIR News Alerts.
क्या आप कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम की तैयारी कर रहे हैं? ऑल इंडिया रेडियो के नए प्रोग्राम अभ्यास में हमारे विशेषज्ञ आपके सवालों का देंगे जवाब। शनिवार रात 9:30 बजे FM गोल्ड पर इस बार का विषय है इंडियन पॉलिटी एंड कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। आप इससे जुड़े सवाल व्हाट्सएप करें 9289094044 पर या सवाल ईमेल भी कर सकते हैं abhyas.airnews@gmail.com पर। भारतीय संविधान और राजनीति विषय पर आपके प्रश्न हमें 5 अप्रैल तक मिल जाने चाहिए। आपका अभ्यास हमारा प्रयास।
अपने बिजनेस को बढ़ाने के लिए लीजिए आकाशवाणी का सहयोग और दीजिए उसे बुलंदियों के पंख।
आपका बिजनेस लोकल है या राष्ट्रीय, आकाशवाणी देती है उपभोक्ताओं तक पहुंचने का हर विकल्प।
और अब तो आप घर, दफ्तर या दुकान पर बैठे बैठे कर सकते हैं आकाशवाणी के किसी भी केंद्र के लिए विज्ञापनों की बुकिंग।
आकाशवाणी के विभिन्न चैनलों पर विज्ञापन देना सुलभ और सस्ता।
बुकिंग है तो संपर्क करें 8700014242 पर।
8700014242।
All India Radio News is launching a new weekly interactive program, Abhyas, for competitive examinations from today. It is aimed at enlightening students and job seekers preparing for competitive examinations. The program will be in Hindi and will be broadcast every Saturday between 9:30 and 10 p.m. The first episode of Abhyas will be aired at 9:30 p.m. tonight on 100.1 FM Gold, and it will focus on modern history. All India Radio News received an overwhelming response for the show from across the country as listeners posted numerous queries. A prominent academician will be responding to the questions. The program has segments like Explainers, Fact File, Examination Calendar and Question of the Week. You can access Abhyas on Twitter at the handle @AIR News Alerts or on AIR News official YouTube channel and on the News on AIR app. For the next episode on April the 9th, students can send their queries on WhatsApp 928-909-4044 or mail on abhyas.air@gmail.com till April the 5th. The subject chosen for the next episode is Indian Polity and Constitution. So join us at All India Radio News for Abhyas every Saturday at 9:30 p.m. on 100.1 FM Gold. Telugu-speaking people across the world are celebrating their Telugu New Year Day, Ugadi, today. People are observing the customary festivities, the traditional fervour and gaiety. The festival is being celebrated across 2 states, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, to mark the beginning of the Hindu lunar calendar. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, people celebrated the festival on a low key during the last 2 years.
Gudi Padwa is being celebrated in Maharashtra today. Gudi Padwa has special significance in Maharashtra. Citizens in the state were not able to celebrate any festival for the past 2 years due to the restrictions in the backdrop of the global pandemic. Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray has extended his greetings to the people of Maharashtra. More from our Mumbai correspondent.
Gudi Padwa, the festival of a new beginning which marks Hindu New Year in Maharashtra, will be celebrated with more enthusiasm and traditional fervor than ever this year, as the state is enjoying the first festival without any restrictions after 2 years. The fear of the pandemic in the century is almost over. Shobha Yatras will be held, loud sound of the dhol, tasha and lejim will be heard, and it will generate more energy among the participants in the processions. People are visiting the temples since morning to seek blessings of the deity for their prosperity and healthy life on the occasion of the new year. Gudis are being erected in front of the houses, where an upturned silver or copper vessel is held high on a stick decorated with colorful cloth and garlands of flowers and neem leaves. Shailesh Patil, AR News, Mumbai.
The festival of Ugadi is also being celebrated in Karnataka today. Ugadi symbolizes the beginning of the new year as per the Hindu calendar. Ugadi falls on the first day of Chaitra, which is the first month in the traditional Hindu calendar. It is the time of the year that heralds the spring season. On this special day, people wake up before sunrise and take a ceremonial oil bath. The entrance of temples, homes and shops are decorated with flowers and mango leaves. Colorful rangolis in front of the houses is a common practice on this day.
President Ramnath Kovind and Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu have greeted the people of the country on the occasion of Chaitra Shukladi, Ugadi, Gudi Padwa, Cheti Chand, Navre and Sajibu Cheraoba. The President said, celebrated in diverse ways across the nation to welcome the spring and the beginning of the Indian New Year, these festivals strengthen the bond of our cultural and social unity. He added, the joyous festivities strengthen the spirit of harmony and fraternity in our society. Prime Minister Narendra Modi greeted the people on the auspicious occasion of Navratri, Ugadi, Gudi Padwa, Navre, Cheti Chand and Sejubu Chairoba. In a series of tweets today, Mr. Modi said, Navratri, festival of worship of Shakti, may infuse new energy in everyone's life. He also wished Happy New Year to citizens, wishing that Vikrant Samvat 2079 may bring new enthusiasm and new zeal in everyone's life. The 9-day-long Hindu festival, Chaitra Navratri, begins today. The festival symbolizes the victory of good over evil. Chaitra is the first month of the year as per the Hindu calendar. The last day of the festivities is observed as Ram Navami, celebrating the birth of Lord Ram on earth. And now, let's listen to our special program Azadi Ka Safar, highlighting the importance of the day during the freedom struggle.
आजादी का अमृत महोत्सव।
Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. Birth of a nation. India's glorious freedom struggle is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the struggle every day.
On the 2nd of April 1870, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha was founded. Pune Sarvajanik Sabha was a socio-political organization which was started with the aim of working as a mediating body between the government and the people of India and to popularize the legal rights of the Indians.
It was formed in 1867 by Mahadev Govind Ranade, Bhavan Rao Srinivas Rao Pant Pratinidhi, Ganesh Vasudev Joshi and S.H. Chiplunker. Other important members of the Sabha included M.M. Kunte, Vishnu M. Bhide, Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Gopal Hari Deshmukh.
The Sarvajanik Sabha was an organization which was representative of the people of the region. So, its first 95 members were elected from among 6,000 people. The members were mostly from the educated middle class of the society and consisted of lawyers, teachers, journalists and government servants. Even though the members were mostly from the upper middle classes, the membership was open to people of all castes and classes.
Sarvajanik Sabha was meant to serve as a link between the government and the people. The organization organized lecture tours and meetings and tried to foster national pride among the people. It also organized relief work during famines.
The Sabha even encouraged Swadeshi and sent its member Ganesh Vasudev Joshi to the Delhi Darbar of 1877 in hand-spun khadi attire. At the Darbar, Joshi read out a citation demanding Her Majesty to grant to India the same political and social status as is enjoyed by her British subjects.
The Pune Sarvajanik Sabha provided many of the prominent leaders of the national stature to the Indian freedom struggle, including Bal Gangadhar Tilak. It served as one of the pioneer political organizations before the formation of the Indian National Congress in 1885.
Also, on the 2nd of April 1942, Cripps' proposal was rejected by the Congress. On the 22nd of March 1942, a mission headed by Stafford Cripps was sent to India with constitutional proposals to seek Indian support for the Second World War.
Because of the defeat of Britain in Southeast Asia, the Japanese threat to invade India seemed real now, and Indian support became crucial. There was pressure on Britain from the Allied nations to seek Indian cooperation. Indian nationalists had agreed to support the British on a condition that substantial power was transferred immediately and complete independence would be given after the Second World War.
The main proposals of the cabinet mission were: an Indian Union with the Dominion status would be set up. After the end of the war, a constituent assembly would be convened to frame a new constitution. All members would be Indians.
The British government also put a clause that it would accept the new constitution subject to a condition that any province not willing to join the union could have a separate constitution and form a separate union.
Muslim League criticized the idea of a single Indian Union. The Congress objected to the offer of Dominion status instead of a provision for complete independence. The nationalist leaders also rejected the idea of rights to provinces to secede, as this went against the principle of national unity. The other groups also objected to the provinces' right to secede.
This breakdown of talks led to the launch of the Quit India movement, which served as the final nail in the coffin of the British Empire in India.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in the next episode tomorrow.
Sri Lanka has declared a state of emergency a day after hundreds tried to storm President's house in anger over unprecedented economic crisis. Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has issued an extraordinary gazette yesterday declaring a public emergency in the island nation with immediate effect. Public emergency is declared in the interest of public security, protection of public order and maintenance of supplies and services essential to the life of the community as it is expedient, the gazette read. In Afghanistan, at least 12 people were killed and 25 others injured in an explosion in the western province of Herat today. According to Tulu News, explosives were buried in a sports field and were triggered as young people were playing there. Provincial health officials have confirmed the death toll. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack yet. Dozens of attacks have been reported throughout the country since the Taliban came to power last August, and Islamic State group has claimed responsibility for some attacks.
Today is World Autism Awareness Day. The objective of the day is to create awareness about autism and also to encourage people to support those who are suffering from this disorder. This year the theme is Inclusive Quality Education for All, which marks the global inequalities in education and society faced by people with autism. Talking to AIR News, Chief of Child Neurology Division, Department of Pediatrics, AIMS, New Delhi, Dr. Shefali Gulati said that the common symptoms of the autism in children include delayed language, poor eye contact, as well as problem in social interaction and communication.
हम ऐसे बच्चों को जैसे 5 उंगलियां हमारी बराबर नहीं होती हैं, उनको सबके समान समझना है, उनकी कोई गलती नहीं है, उनके माँ बाप की कोई गलती नहीं है और हर बच्चे का, हर इंसान का फंडामेंटल राइट है सिटीजन ऑफ आवर कंट्री की उनको सब कुछ मिले। तो हमारे को पूरा ह्यूमैनिस्टिक एस्पेक्ट से, एम्पैथी से, हमारे को प्यार से इन सबको देखना चाहिए।
Dr. Gulati added that once the child shows symptoms of autism, then the parents should immediately consult a pediatrician for early identification.
Most of the common issues what these children have, they may have a delayed language or they may have loss of attained language milestones. They may not have eye contact, very good eye contact when they are talking. They may pretend to be deaf when you are talking to them. They may have repeated stereotypic behaviors. They may like to stack their toys in a straight line. Basically, they have problem in social interaction, communication, and those restricted, repetitive patterns of behaviors and interests with some sensory issues. They may like to smell some soap or they may be very insensitive to sound around.
In IPL cricket, Kolkata Knight Riders defeated Punjab Kings by 6 wickets at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai last night. Chasing a victory target of 138, Kolkata Knight Riders overhauled the target by losing just 4 wickets and 33 balls to spare. Today, Mumbai Indians will face Rajasthan Royals at D.Y. Patil Stadium in Navi Mumbai, while Gujarat Titans will clash against Delhi Capitals in Maharashtra Cricket Association Stadium in Pune.
And now let us take a look at the weather forecast for today. Srinagar will have mainly clear sky. Temperature will hover between 8 and 27 degrees Celsius. Jammu will have mainly clear sky. The minimum temperature was 18 degrees Celsius, while the maximum will be around 36. The national capital Delhi will have clear sky. The temperature will vary between 20 and 39 degrees Celsius. Mumbai will have mainly clear sky. The minimum temperature was 21. The maximum is expected to be 36. Chennai is likely to have partly cloudy sky. The temperature will vary between 28 and 35 degrees Celsius. Kolkata will have partly cloudy sky. The minimum temperature was 27 degrees Celsius and the maximum is expected to be 35. Leh is likely to have mainly clear sky. The minimum and maximum temperatures will hover between 3 and 18 degrees Celsius. Gilgit will have mainly clear sky. The temperature will hover between 9 and 31 degrees Celsius. Muzaffarabad will have mainly clear sky, becoming partly cloudy later. The minimum temperature was 15 degrees Celsius. The maximum will be around 34.
And now an overview of today's newspapers. Hindustan Times quotes Russian Foreign Minister as saying that Russia appreciates India's neutral stance on Ukraine. India-Russia explore rupee-ruble trade, writes the Tribune. The Indian Express leads with the headline, "No one will oppose if India backs such a process, Lavrov on Ukraine mediation." The Times of India's online edition reports that Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has hailed India's independent foreign policy, which is centered on people. March GST mop up at new high of 1.42 lakh crore rupees, reports Business Standard. The first time in its history, BJP hits 100-seat mark in Rajya Sabha, reports the Asian Age. Its strength in the upper house was 55, writes the paper. Reuters has filed a report disclosing that the Hubble telescope has spotted Earendel, the most distant star on record. The Times of India reports that March this year was India's hottest in 122 years. And finally, researchers have finished decoding full human genome. The Asian Age reports that an international team of scientists have accomplished adding the missing pieces to a puzzle nearly completed 2 decades ago.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi conveys to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov India's readiness to contribute to peace efforts in Ukraine-Russia conflict. Reiterates his call for early cessation of violence in the region. National Education Policy 2020 caters to 21st century aspirations and takes India to the future, says Prime Minister. Interacts with students, teachers and parents in the 5th edition of Pariksha Pe Charcha. Nepal Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deoba to meet Prime Minister Modi in New Delhi this afternoon. President Ramnath Kovind to hold bilateral talks with his Turkmenistan counterpart Sardar Berdi Mohammedow today at capital Ashgabat. GST collection touches all-time high of over 1,42,000 crore rupees in March this year. Telugu and Kannada New Year Day, Ugadi, and Marathi New Year, Gudi Padava, being celebrated today. Public emergency declared in Sri Lanka after hundreds tried to storm President's house. At least 12 people killed and 25 injured in an explosion in Afghanistan. In IPL cricket, Kolkata Knight Riders defeat Punjab Kings by 6 wickets last night. Mumbai Indians to face Rajasthan Royals at Navi Mumbai, and Gujarat Titans to clash with Delhi Capitals in Pune today. And with that, we end the morning news. Have a nice day.